Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. So I finally updated my Sony A7IV camera with the latest firmware. Now, this is something that I've never done before, and even with my previous camera, the Panasonic G85, which I had for years, I never updated this one as well. But then again, whenever I did purchase this, I don't recall there being any new software updates. But with the Sony A7IV, there have been some software updates, and then one in particular that actually has some controversy behind it. And I actually ran into my own problems when updating the firmware. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. And so the latest version is version 1.10. And so they did release this initially on August 24th, 2022, but it was buggy, it had problems, and so people were having issues with this initial update. So Sony pulled this, they made some fixes, and then they re-released it on September 8th, 2022, and now people could actually update to the latest firmware. And the thing with this one is you actually can't go directly to version 1.10 if you are running firmware version 1.01 or earlier, which is my situation because I'm still running the original version 1.0. And so you're going to have to update to 1.05. Once you do that, you can then update to 1.10, and I will leave links in the description area below. Now, before you download these firmware updates, you want to check and see which version that you have running on your camera. So you could do that by going into your menu, going down to the very bottom, go to setup option, and then you see version. So if you're not already running version 1.05, then you need to download the firmware update for 1.05 first. And then after you do that update, you could download version 1.10. And once you go to the download page, it's very straightforward. But one of the great things that they did with this update is they allow you to do the update directly from your SD card, and you don't have to install software in your computer. So before you had to install this software on Windows or Mac OS before you could do the update. That's actually where you do all the updates. And so this is great for me because I use Linux, and so this is going to make it a lot more convenient. So what you do is once you download this file, which is called bodydata.dat, what you're going to do is you're actually going to put this on your SD card on the root directory. So if you don't know what a root directory is, whenever you plug your SD card into your computer or you plug it into your computer from your camera, the very first folder that comes up, that is your root directory. It's normally going to have something like private on the very front of the folder. That's at least what I have. And so once you see that, you just go ahead and drop the bodydata.dat file. And the thing is, whenever you download version 1.05 or 1.10, they're going to have the exact same name. So it's really important that you actually download the right version, and also don't rename it, and make sure you have it in the root directory. Now, one of the things that Sony recommends before you actually do this update, to first have a fully charged battery, and then secondly, to format your SD card first. And so I did both of those things. And then I went ahead and copied that bodydata.dat file over to my SD card. And once you have everything ready, you can now update the firmware on your camera. And so this is a fairly straightforward process, but I did run into some issues, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And so once you have the file copied over to your SD card, you could put it back into your camera. But if you already had it in your camera, you plugged it into your computer, you're good to go. And what you're going to do is you're going to go back to the whole menu, go to the version. But what you're going to see different now is there's going to be an option to do a software update. So once you click on that, there's going to be some things that you actually have to scroll and read through. And then you could choose to execute or cancel, and just choose execute, and now the update is going to start running. And this is where I ran into some issues because it is going to be flashing. There's going to be a red flash on the bottom right on your camera, but depending on the type of flashes and how long it flashes, it's going to determine whether or not the update is going correctly. And Sony does put this on their page. They tell you that it's normally going to flash from 1 to 3 to 5 times. But if you're in a situation where it flashes 5 times slowly and then 6 times really quick, then there is a problem. And then the other thing you'll notice is it's going to take longer than what they say, because typically it's going to take anywhere from 6 to 8 minutes. But at least for me, whenever it was exceeding 10 minutes and then I saw it was flashing 5 times slowly, then 6 times fast consistently, then I knew there was a problem and I kind of freaked out. But in that case, Sony tells you all you have to do is take out your battery, take out the SD card, and put things back in and start the process again from copying over the body data file over to your SD card and go through the same process. So at least for me, I actually had to do this 3 times before it worked. I don't know what I did wrong, but eventually it did work. And so that was how I was able to update from version 1.0 to version 1.05. And once that was successful, then I was able to update to version 1.10, and I went through the same process as I did before. And that's it. I was able to update the firmware to the latest version, and it does have a number of features and updates, and I'll leave that in the description area below because a lot of it is photography related, but there's also going to be updates for making the camera more stable and also improving eye autofocus. And so that's it for today's video. So if you've never updated your firmware before, hopefully this helped you if you are a Sony A7IV user. And if you do run into issues, then I ran into this as well. And Sony does do a good job of going over the main issues that you might run into if you were updating your firmware. So if you actually had any thoughts on this or any of your own experiences updating firmware on your camera, be sure to leave it in the comments area below. And if you did want to see more of my camera tips, tutorials, and reviews, I do have an entire playlist. I'll leave that in the description area as well. So as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to share, like, and subscribe. For serious YouTubers, check out TubeBuddy, the premier tool news at geekoutdoors.com. Get more done today by checking out the affiliate link in the description area below.